1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place show yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got a loaded show for you today. Jon Rothstein from CBS Sports, college basketball insider, going to stop by 40 minutes from now. We will debut a new segment called Winkler Wednesdays, which will be each and every Wednesday right here on CBS Sports Radio on the Zach Gelb Show with Bart Winkler, who hosts our 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time show on many of these same CBS Sports Radio affiliates. And then Drew Tranquill, the linebacker for the Kansas City, how about those Chiefs? Going to stop by at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. Got Stuart Kovacs and Moist Mike rocking and rolling with me as we'll take you up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I was actually startled today by Moist Mike. So, Stu, let me just ask you this, and I'll lay it out there for the listening audience. We are doing a show dinner after the show tonight. We are going to a very good steakhouse in New York City called Wolfgang's, which has a phenomenal porterhouse that you could share for the table. You get a bunch of thick-cut bacon as well. I'm sure we'll get some, like, lobster mac and cheese, some cream spinach, things like that. There's a lot of good sides that you typically get at a steakhouse. I don't know about you, Stu, but when I'm gearing up to eat like a fat pig at a steakhouse, which we'll do tonight after the show, I don't like to eat a lot during the day. Like, all I had today was a peanut butter protein bar and a large cup of coffee from Starbucks. So I understand that's not a lot of food. Like, I'm not saying people should do that when they're getting ready to go to a steakhouse. Maybe if you want to have a salad or something light, like a peanut butter sandwich, something along those lines, but something rather light. I walked into the studio, and what I saw from Samter, it would usually be a great order, but today it was repulsive. I'll get to that in a second. but I just want to make sure that we're in lockstep here, Stu. What did you have to eat today? Are you a breakfast guy? I feel like you're not a breakfast guy.
I'm not a breakfast guy, so
what did you have for lunch?
So I kind of went the same route as you today. I had my medium coffee from Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
And then I had my energy bar around 1:30.
Wow, so Stu and I are really the same person.
Yes.
And I think both of that probably has to pertain to Stu and I used to be a little extra heftier, a little extra husky. And I think when you lose a good amount of weight like Stu and I have, that mentally, when you're going to eat a big gluttonous meal, like internally, you then feel like crap afterwards, even though it's a delicious meal. So you don't want to feel extra crappy by having two enormous meals. So I go to Samter, and I walk into the newsroom today. And usually the newsroom smells like crap. We got a bunch of people. Cleanliness and hygiene is not an expertise around here. I don't know how many people in our newsroom wear deodorant. Like each and every day before I come in here, I spray some cologne on myself. I spray some deodorant under the armpits. Like I am a clean human being. But usually the newsroom smells like crap. It smells like a locker room. Today, the newsroom smelled just absolutely delicious. It was delightful. And I saw Samter was chowing down on a chicken cutlet sandwich. And I don't know what else was on it. But there's a certain smell when you put a chicken cutlet on a sandwich and you get it from a deli, and it just made an unbelievable smell resonate throughout the office. So I appreciate Samter making what is usually our CBS Sports Radio locker room not smell like an actual locker room and make it smell good. But I am in awe, and I'm actually somewhat impressed that Michael Samter is able to eat a full chicken cutlet sandwich, and then it's not like we're eating at 8 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. We're going to dinner at 6:30. So that steak is going to be in your mouth no later than 7 p.m. Eastern. That is a quick turnaround. So I give you credit, but I also thought it was gluttonous and somewhat repulsive as well.
Well, let me just clarify. I didn't have the full sandwich. I had one half of it.
A big sandwich, though.
Yeah, it was on a hoagie, on like a hero bun. I had a half.
Lettuce, tomato?
Lettuce, tomato, Russian dressing, little chicken cutlet.
I was going to guess Chipotle mayo. That's what I was smelling.
No, it was all Russian all day. So I only had half and then maybe like one bite of the second piece. However, with that being said, there is an important scientific realization of stretching the stomach. Right? When you're going out for a big meal, I used to make this mistake before Thanksgiving.
Joe Rogan's podcast now?
Before Thanksgiving, I used to always make this mistake. I'm not going to eat for whatever until I actually have to eat for Thanksgiving. And then I would have a few bites and man, I'm already full. Because your stomach, the more you don't eat, your stomach shrinks. And so therefore, when you try to put a lot of food into your stomach.
Buddy, my stomach ain't shrinking.
It's scientific. It's biology. Your stomach will shrink. Now, it might still be larger than the average human stomach, but it's smaller than it normally would be. So what you have to do is just kind of warm it up. Warm it up.
I think that was the nicest insult he ever did.
I didn't say fat. I just, you're larger than average size.
I'm a big dude. Now, I go to the gym an hour a day, and I was on the elliptical for an hour.
Now, when you work out, when you go for a run, when you do the elliptical, do you stretch the muscles a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not every day.
Right.
But I will make sure 2 or 3 times a week. So in my gym in my apartment, there is also 2 different rooms adjacent to the gym. One room is like a children's playroom. So if you're working out, you could dump your kid off in there and they could have fun and play with a bunch of toys. So they have that. And then the other, it's kind of like a yoga ballet room. So I will go into the yoga and ballet room because they have a bunch of mats and it's isolated and no one's really ever in there. And I will then stretch after. I should probably do it before my workout, but I stretch after my workout about 2 or 3 days a week.
I mean, listen, I understand stretching after your workout, but to avoid injury, it is usually best to stretch before your workout to kind of loosen up your muscles. And that was all I'm doing.
My mother.
I was just stretching out my stomach, loosening up my muscle, getting ready for the big meal. And here's the other part. Our reservations for 6:30, we're not eating at 6:30. We get there at 6:30.
At 7.
We're going to have a drink. We're going to order our food. We probably order the food around 6:45, right? By the time like the waiter comes around, we put the order in. It's 6:45. The food doesn't come out till 7:15. So we're not eating until 7:30 at the very earliest. So you know what? I've got myself 5.5 hours, stretched out my stomach with a half a sandwich. I'm good.
Did you have
guys are making
breakfast this
mistakes.
morning? Did you have breakfast?
No, I mean, I had a couple almonds, but not really.
Couple almonds.
Yeah, but I mean, that's usually what I do in the morning. I have like a
No,
little bit of
that's
protein,
fine.
a few almonds, some nuts, just to kind of get the day going. Maybe like a little an orange or something, but
Gotcha.
usually very small, mild.
I'm actually impressed because if we just put a photo out of the three of us, who had the largest meal of the day, I think people would rank it, me being 1, Stu being 2, and then Samter being 3. And Samter actually is the one that has ate more food today than Stu and I combined. Now, here's another question. What do you do with the other, what did you have, a half left of the sandwich round? What do you do with the other half of sandwich?
Well, there's this great invention that is very recent, and if you haven't heard of it yet, then I don't blame you.
Sarcastic Samter.
Yeah, it's called a refrigerator, right? You throw your food into a refrigerator.
Yeah, but the refrigerator's here.
Yes.
So then are you going to take it to the steakhouse or are you just going to leave it here?
I also work every day of the week, so I'll be back here again tomorrow.
Oh, you leave food here in the work fridge.
That's risky.
That's a major no-no from me. Now I know why you're like kind of sick all the time.
How on earth?
Well, because there's probably things growing in that fridge that I can't even. That is not a clean fridge.
I actually make a point of cleaning it.
Yeah, I would not.
I
trust.
put food in there all the time.
That is a communal fridge. I would not trust everyone that uses that fridge here in this office. And also, being here at one point at late night hours for 2 years working 2 to 6 a.m. Eastern time, I would not be shocked if the late night creatures that work here end up going into the fridge and eating your sandwich.
I will say this. I've had chargers and various other headphones taken out of my desk before.
Never had something
But
taken
I've
from the
never had
fridge.
anyone eat my food yet before.
Yeah, well, that's because James Graceffo no longer works here.
Oh,
or Ben
Graceffo.
Horowitz.
Oh, man, I miss that guy.
Because Samter has a desk here, but it's not like labeled like Samter's desk or Moist Mike's desk. So it's rather in the open. Now, Samter does have like a little file cabinet that if you put stuff in there, no one will go into that cabinet and take the snacks, because I have noticed Samter has a lot of snacks.
In theory, to Stu's point, he's saying this not on mic, but he's right. In theory, people don't go through it, but people do.
Yeah, well, I will tell you this. I have gone through your desk before to get some Trader Joe's snacks that you have brought in because they're very, very tasty.
I bring in the best snacks.
But there are some times where you will, not intentionally, I don't think, but you will leave the snacks out on your desk or like on top of the ledge right by your desk. And once that happens, you are basically like putting the Twinkie out there and we're all trying to catch like a wild animal or something, and that Twinkie will get devoured.
I do want you to understand that when there is a snack on the desk or especially
You're
on the
done with
ledge, no, those are snacks that I can't stand and I want to just get rid of. So I put them on the ledge for everyone else to suffer through.
Good company guy, because people then look at it and be like, all right, Santa's either being very generous or he just was very forgetful with the snacks that he has left out.
It's win-win. It's I don't want it, but I'm going to look like the good guy by giving it to you.
Gotcha. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So, real quickly, this is one of my mind to start the show. Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. I could guarantee you as we sit here on a Wednesday of Conference Championship Week that when we get into the studio on Monday, the first segment will either be about Lamar Jackson or Brock Purdy. That's the two biggest storylines heading into Conference Championship Weekend. Whether the analysis and commentary is fair or not, that's a different topic of conversation. But with Lamar Jackson, he wins the game. People will say Lamar is now going to be winning 2 MVPs. Lamar has now got his team to a Super Bowl. He will start to get the praise that is long overdue, where the only reason there's been criticism of Lamar Jackson has been because he's been so great in the regular season, But then in the postseason, even though it's not a large sample size, up until the other week, he was 1-3 in the postseason. So you're talking about 4 games. There's been that Giannis kind of relationship with Lamar where the conversation has been, he's so great, but the only flaw is he hasn't won a championship. So there will start to be a lot of national praise for Lamar Jackson if he does win this game up against the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. However, if he loses, you will get everyone that will say, see, I told you so. And the people that say, see, I told you so, there's no way that you're ever going to connect and change their mind until Lamar actually wins the Super Bowl. You know, some guy tweeted me today. I don't know if he's listening to someone else and he thought it was me or he just confused what I said, but he's like, your Josh Allen take is embarrassing. My only Josh Allen take this week has been, I think Josh Allen is a top 4 quarterback in the league, and Josh Allen played a good game but had a bad finish up against Kansas City. And then that tweeter brought up Lamar Jackson to me and how I would never say the same about Lamar Jackson. I'm like, buddy, you just don't know what you're talking about, because I have tweets, I have takes, even going back to 2021, or it was 2022 where I put this out, where I made that comparison to Lamar and Giannis, and my exact words were, Lamar's a top 10 quarterback in the sport, and I absolutely think that he could win a Super Bowl. But there is no doubt about it, win or lose, on Monday, we're talking about Lamar Jackson. And the same as Brock Purdy. The only difference is, even if Brock Purdy wins, it's going to be how he wins to determine how far the praise is going to go. Because the 49ers are Super Bowl or bust. They've been Super Bowl or bust the last few years, and Jimmy G can only take them so far. Once was to a Super Bowl, but he didn't get the job done with a 10-point lead and 7.5 to play. So for Brock Purdy, if he goes and throws 3 or 4 touchdown passes and they win the game through the air, maybe we don't have the game manager conversation coming up on Monday. Now, the whole thing's irrelevant anyway, because all you care about if you're a 49ers fan is win the damn game. Who cares how you win the damn game? But there will still be a conversation about Brock Purdy where if he wins, I think it depends how he wins to garner how much praise he's going to get. But if he loses, you know what's going to happen, especially with how quick Kyle Shanahan is to pull the rug out from underneath his quarterback. There will be speculation, fair or not, and I don't think it's fair with what Brock Purdy has done this year, where people will say, can the 49ers do better at quarterback, and can they go get someone else this offseason? And when we get into that conversation, I thought it was very interesting that it was Brock Purdy in an ESPN article last week that he was the one to bring up that the team pursued Tom Brady this past offseason. Why did Tom Brady pass up on the 49ers? Well, we'll discuss that when we return. It's a Zach Gelb Show, off and running on a very busy Wednesday edition. Jon Rothstein going to join us 25 minutes from now. We'll have Bart Winkler on Winkler Wednesdays at 4:40 p.m. Eastern. And then at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, he's playing in the AFC title game this weekend. Drew Tranquill from the Kansas City Chiefs.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
There's morons and then there's Josh McDaniels as a head coach. And this jackass goes, oh, don't you talk about the Patriots that way. It is one of the more inconceivable things and laughable things that I've ever heard. The great Larry David couldn't even write that script of comedy. McDaniels must have known he was getting fired, and he was auditioning for Saturday Night Live. Because when I heard that over the weekend, my chest was hurting because I was laughing. I fell down. I hit the floor because Antonio Pierce came and saved your ass. And you go, nope, I'm going to throw more gasoline on the fire. How dare you, Antonio Pierce, talk badly about Bill Belichick.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I love Jim Harbaugh. I'm getting tired, though, of the Jim Harbaugh watch. I feel as if there's a new report at least once a week that Michigan has offered some deal to Jim Harbaugh, and there's a stipulation or a point of contention in the deal. Then it appeared yesterday that the Chargers were going to get it done with Jim Harbaugh, and I don't know what came out of that. And now you hear that there was one report that he was going to Atlanta for a second interview, and now that interview is not going to happen today. You never know with these coaching searches where the information is coming from. Like, you know who the reporters are, but you don't know who their sources are. And when it comes to coaching searches, is this information getting leaked by the Harbaugh camp? Is it getting leaked by the teams? you don't know what the benefit is to leak this information and where the source is. So I'm just tired of the speculation. I'm tired of where is he going to go. Like, let's just make a decision. Los Angeles, you should offer him the job. Michigan, you should give him whatever he wants. Atlanta, you want to get into the mix too and do a second interview, make an offer. This guy is just a spectacular and masterful coach in college and the NFL. There's no reason why Michigan shouldn't want Jim Harbaugh anymore and do it on his terms, and there's no reason why most of these NFL teams that still have vacancies shouldn't want Jim Harbaugh as well. This seems like it should be a lot less complex than what it is, and it should be simpler. And I'm just tired. I have Jim Harbaugh fatigue now when it comes on the speculation on where he's going to be coaching next year. I still sit in the firm belief that he is going to be an NFL head coach. But if he does not become an NFL head coach again this offseason, I don't think it's going to happen again, because then that would be 3 hiring cycles when his stock better and better and better where he hasn't gotten a job. Ultimately, I do believe he'll take the NFL job this year and he'll get an NFL job this year, and it'll be different than the prior 2 off seasons. But I am tapping out, and I am just tired of the endless speculation and the endless reporting regarding Jim Harbaugh. So I think Pro Football Talk with our pals Mike Florio and company, they did a really good job. And I got to ask this question to Samter. And Samter, right, has been in this business for a long time. So we never know necessarily why certain stories decide to pop off when they do. Like, there has been times where I have put stuff out there, and then like a month later, it will get picked up from somewhere, and the views will like double or triple or whatever. So last week, ESPN, they released this article about Brock Purdy. And I guess Pro Football Talk did some digging in the article, and this was not in the headline. This was not early in the article. I guess it was just kind of buried middle somewhere in the article, according to Pro Football Talk. And it was this tidbit where it said, earlier in the offseason, Niners coach Kyle Shanahan sat down with Purdy and assured him that he was healthy. He would be the starter unless Tom Brady wanted to play one more season for his hometown Niners. That meant so much to me, Purdy said. I remembered him saying, if we can get Tom Brady, we're going to try to get him. And I was like, yeah, he's the GOAT. I get it. But something deep down inside of me was sort of like, dude, I just showed you that I could play well in the system, and we were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. More than anything, I was like, okay, now let's go. That is wild to me, Samter. How you know that anytime you have something with Tom Brady's name in it, especially with this playing future, or teams that were interested, or a team that was interested, and it's been speculated forever, Brady and the 49ers, whether the reporter had that information and went to Brock Purdy, or Brock Purdy just revealed it in the interview with the reporter, it is kind of crazy that that wasn't the main headline and that wasn't the main thing that came out of this article, because this article was released last week, and like January 16th, I think it was, and it wasn't until the other day where people started to pick up on this, where you just had what they tried to make it be an irrelevant storyline with just throwing it in the middle, but that's a very relevant storyline, and I don't even know anything else. I did not read the article, full disclosure. I don't know anything else that was said in this article, because the only time I've heard this article be referenced was more than a week later when people started to pick up about the middle of that article where Tom Brady, I guess, had interest from the 49ers, and I don't know how far it did go, but clearly Brady got approached, and he said no, because at least in the Brock Purdy thing, unless this is just a boss trying to motivate a player a little bit more, he said, hey, you're going to be our quarterback unless Tom Brady doesn't want to be there. But it is weird that that wasn't the main takeaway, and that wasn't the main feature, at least when it was thrown out there by ESPN, Samter. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the whole Tom Brady situation, we've seen all the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs, and he's going to have one of the more complicated, not complicated, but just one of the more unique legacies just for what he's done and how he's done it and for how long he did it and where he did it, with who he did it with, when he left, why he didn't come back, maybe being an owner. Tom Brady might go down as one of the most influential figures in football history.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think most people with a brain right now think he is the greatest quarterback of all time. But with all that being said, the most impressive thing with Tom Brady is how long he was able to win. And here's also the other compelling part to it. Let's say that did go down. And let's say Brady said yes, and Brady is playing for the Niners right now. There's no doubting the quarterback position. And that's the crazy part. Brady is now 46 years old. And Tom Brady, if he was actually afforded the opportunity and wanted to play, which clearly he didn't, or maybe he wasn't lying when he was like, I was about to come out of retirement and my friends threw me a surprise retirement party, and I kind of just realized, hey, you can't retire, come back, retire, and then come back again. After the second time, the friends thought that this was legit and that this was actually real. Because the first time Brady retired, no one thought that was the end of Tom Brady. But the second time, a lot of people did. But once your friends throw you a surprise retirement party, Brady could do whatever he wants. But I do kind of feel as if that would have been awkward, that if he did elect to come back. But Brady absolutely could have won a Super Bowl this year at the age of 46 with the 49ers. And not that Brady needs to add anything else to his legacy, but if you just want to continue to distance yourself from not only being the best quarterback, but then the best player in NFL history, because that's like up for debate to see the best player in NFL history, but just in terms of being the best quarterback, he is. You go and you landed in San Francisco for 1 year and you win a Super Bowl. You would then have won 6 in New England. You then would have won 1 in Tampa, and you also would have won 1 potentially in San Francisco. It would be like, how much more perfect do you need this resume to be?
Well, and the two things I'll say to that. One, when he went to Tampa, the expectations of him winning a Super Bowl weren't really there.
Oh, they were low.
They were very low.
Even in that season, if you recall, I know it ended with Brady winning the Super Bowl. There were many weeks where people were saying, see, Brady needed Bill a lot more than what we thought. There was a lot of that conversation.
100%. And, of course, Bill was getting into the playoffs with Mac Jones that year. But early on, like even when
the following year, I think.
Was it the following year?
Yeah, because it was 2020.
First year, that's right. That's right.
But Bill had like 7 wins that year with Cam and really nothing around Cam.
So Brady went there. The expectation for winning in Tampa wasn't really there. So when he won, it was like, gosh, he's just amazing.
Yeah.
Had he gone to San Francisco, it was Super Bowl or bust. And if he didn't win this year as the 49ers quarterback, then all bets are off. Then it's like, well, maybe Tom Brady isn't the guy. Maybe Tom Brady is on the downward slope.
You think people would have said that? I don't think there's anything negative Tom Brady could have. Well, any reaction about Tom Brady if he kept on playing?
Not to his goatness, but we look at his last year in Tampa, right? We all know that the Bucs underachieved. They didn't do very well. They struggled in the regular season, kind of squeaked into the playoffs because the division sucked. And they didn't go nearly as far as they were hoping to get as he had gotten in previous years.
Yeah, they also walk around.
Right. His previous 2 years in Tampa, 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns. That was in 16 games. 5,300 yards, 43 touchdowns. And then his last year, he had 25 touchdowns in 17 games, 4,600 yards. At what point do we say, okay, listen, maybe the Bucs were the problem. Maybe it was something to do with Chris Godwin being hurt, or maybe Mike Evans was on a downward slope. Maybe Gronk was on a downward slope. Maybe Tom Brady realized, like, maybe I just don't have it the way I used to. And so him walking away was also him saying, if I go to the 49ers with the expectations as they are, me knowing that I'm not the guy that I used to be, that I had a bad year, that the Bucs were bad, not just because of everything around me, because maybe I'm not as good as I used to be. Maybe he realized that it's a no-win situation for him in San Fran, and he wasn't going to be able to do what the expectations were going to be expecting him to do.
So we talk about Brock Purdy, a lot of people saying being a game manager. All Tom Brady would need to be would be a game manager. That's all he would need to be. Even Tom Brady at, let's say, even if you wanted to say he was finally reaching his decline, would still be a better game manager than what, like 98% of the league or something like that. And let's be real about the last year in Tampa, because I said this after the last year in New England. The only time Tom Brady gets beat is when he doesn't have protection. And that offensive line was decimated last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then he would be going to San Francisco, playing with one of the greatest left tackles of all time and a great offensive line in San Francisco. And you get Christian McCaffrey you could hand the ball off to, and then the weapons of Debo and Kittle and Ayuk. The 49ers would be better, and they could win the Super Bowl this year. And this is no knock on Brock Purdy. This is just an obvious take. The 49ers, who were out of this world for times this year, would even be more out of this world with Tom Brady at quarterback this year. And you saw it in 2019 to 2020. Brady won a Super Bowl again right when he got a better offensive line. The offensive line was dog bleep at the end in New England. And at the end in Tampa, the offensive line was dog bleep. So you'd be going to San Francisco where there's not many warts on that roster or flaws on that roster. Brady absolutely would have kicked ass, and they would have been the overwhelming favorite heading into the season to not only win the NFC, but also to win the Super Bowl. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a timeout. We're going to connect with Jon Rothstein on the other side, talk some college hoops. But first up, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. The Cavaliers go for their 9th straight win tonight in Milwaukee. The Bucks, of course, shook things up yesterday, firing head coach Adrian Griffin, despite the second-best start in the East at 30-13. Doc Rivers is who they are turning to next. The 62-year-old is back in the coaching ranks after a brief dalliance with ESPN, agreeing to a deal but reportedly will not be coaching the team tonight. It has been impossible to overlook the Thunder, who have won 3 in a row, and to move back into a tie. The top spot in the West, their rebuild starting to come to fruition, and starts with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, said talent runs deep on this team.
We have a group of guys that work super hard, and it makes it easy to trust them. They're guys that work hard and want to, at the end of the day, win and be the best versions of themselves. And when you know guys have that on their mind and your best interest, all that other stuff comes easy.
They'll face the Spurs in San Antonio. Deebo Samuel isn't practicing today due to a shoulder injury, but Kyle Shanahan said he is feeling better. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining.
2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Now joining us, one of the best college basketball insiders around, via our friends at CBS Sports, and also on behalf of FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, is, of course, Jon Rothstein. John, I know it's been a while, but appreciate the time as always. How you been, my friend?
Great, Zach. Always good to be with you, buddy.
Thanks so much for coming on. Let me start you off with UNC. So 2 years ago, we know they got to the national championship game and they lost. Last year, they took a little bit of a step back. This was a big year for Hubert Davis at UNC with the Tar Heels. Why has he been able to get it right so far as we get closer and closer to March?
You know, there's a number of reasons, Zach. I think one of the biggest is rhythm and chemistry. And this is not a slight on Caleb Love, who's having a great year at Arizona, who's on one of the best teams in the country. But we are seeing right now a higher usage and a bigger focal point being made for RJ Davis, who has separated himself unequivocally as the best point guard in college basketball. And one of the ironic things, if you want to look historically for North Carolina has not had a guard who was a first-team All-American since Joseph Forte in the 2000-2001 season. Other players in North Carolina's program have been second and third-team All-Americans: Ray Felton, Rashad McCants, Ty Lawson, and Kendall Marshall. But nobody since Joe Forte has been a first-team All-American. That is going to change this season with RJ Davis.
I know Kentucky lost last night to South Carolina. What do you think the ceiling is for John Calipari's squad this year?
Extremely high as any team in college basketball. But the irony to me is this. When we have seen John Calipari have his best teams at Kentucky, and even his best teams at Memphis, they have been elite defensively. Think about 2012 when he won a national title with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Anthony Davis. Think about 2015 when we had the 38-1 team that was anchored by Willie Cauley-Stein. This Kentucky team is at its best when it outscores you. This Kentucky team has firepower for days, but this Kentucky team also struggles defensively. So it's kind of like that Seinfeld episode where George Costanza was always doing the opposite. This is the opposite of what has always made John Calipari successful, a great offensive team that struggles defensively.
Talking to Jon Rothstein right now, who do you think is the best team in the country with what you've seen so far?
Connecticut's the best team in the country as of right now. I do think there's a couple of teams that have separated themselves at the top. Connecticut, Purdue, North Carolina. But Connecticut, you have to remember, handedly beat North Carolina in December and just looks crisper, sharper, more effective than any other team in the sport. And I think when you look at things right now, we have to remember that the three best players on last year's team that won a national championship at UConn, Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins, and Andre Jackson, are no longer a member of the Huskies program. And UConn also lost a very key reserve in Joey Calcaterra. So I think if you're asking me right now, January, who's the national coach of the year, it's Dan Hurley 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
And it's crazy with what he's done, because you win a championship, naturally you're going to probably regress the next year to be this hot out of the gate and to be the number one team in the country right now. I know he didn't need another endorsement to understand how he's this good of a coach, but it's really impressive what they've done this year.
What Dan Hurley is doing at UConn is Calhoun-esque. That is the best way to describe it. Now, for as great as Jim Calhoun was, 3 national championships, 4 Final Fours, a whopping 17 Big East regular season and tournament titles combined. One thing that UConn has not done in its storied history is reach the Final Four in back-to-back seasons. Dan Hurley can accomplish that this year. And I want to point this out. Every single game in college basketball matters. And you know I tweet that when I reference certain teams who go up or down daily in the net. But every single game matters, especially if you're one of the teams who is vying to be a high seed in the NCAA tournament. For UConn, it matters more, and this is why. If you look at the makeup of the regional sites in this year's NCAA tournament, the East region this year is set to play first and second round games at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and then Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games at TD Garden in Boston. What does that mean? Once UConn, if it's the number one seed in the East, finishes the regular season, it would go to the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. It would then, again, if it's the top seed in the East, go to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And then if it were to win there, it would go to TD Garden in Boston. That is an easy trip for Dan Hurley to play a max 7 postseason games before the Final Four, up and down 95. And yes, UConn, if it's the number one seed in the East, could get back to the Final Four for the first time in program history without getting on a plane.
Talking to Jon Rothstein right now. So we all remember what happened when Virginia was a 1 and lost to a 16 seed. The next year, they won it all. What do you think the chapter's going to be with Purdue, with what has happened a year ago and a lot of their early round exits from the tourney?
Purdue's season will not truly start until the first game of the NCAA tournament. And the only way for Purdue to truly exercise its demons from last year when it lost to Fairleigh Dickinson and the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA tournament is to get to the Final Four in Arizona. Anything less will be a disappointment to Matt Painter, to Gene Cady, to the Boilers players, to the Boilers alumni, and they have the team to get to a Final Four. And it's not just Zach Edey. It is not just Braden Smith. The guy for Purdue that has reached another level the last couple of weeks is Southern Illinois grad transfer Lance Jones. He's averaging over 19 points a game in his last couple of games. He was brought in to help add quickness and versatility defensively on the perimeter. Lance Jones is giving Purdue offense. If Lance Jones continues to play like he is right now, Purdue will be in the Final Four for the first time since 1980.
Jon Rothstein here with us. It's always tough to win your bracket pool. Especially when a lot of people just end up watching in March and filling out their brackets in March. So right now, as January is coming to a close, who are some teams that you have on your radar that we may be talking about a lot more when we get deep into March?
It's a great question. I love Richard Pitino's team at New Mexico. That's a team and a program that hasn't been in the NCAA tournament since 2014. But if you study this program, if you watch this basketball team, they have a perimeter troika in Donovan Dent, Jalen House, and Jamal Mashburn Jr. That's one of the top perimeters in college basketball, not just the Mountain West, in college basketball. Richard Pitino also has a freshman in JT Toppin, who's one of the best front court players in the country that not a lot of people know about. And I firmly believe if that troika that I referenced, Dent, Mashburn Jr., and Jalen House, played for a Villanova, played for a Miami, program synonymous with elite perimeter players, we would be talking about New Mexico as having obviously a team that is in a situation where it could go far in the NCAA tournament. And if New Mexico's guards, which I referenced, played for a Villanova or played for Miami, you would be hearing them referenced as the best backcourt in the country, at least in an arguable sense on a regular basis.
Jon Rothstein here with us. We know FAU is still in the top 25. They're down to 22 now. Returned basically almost their entire roster from last year with Dusty May that went to the Final Four. It's tough when you go on that run to have success again the next season. How much of a player do you think FAU will be in this year's NCAA tournament?
I think they'll be a player. I think they'll be dangerous. It all comes down to matchups in the NCAA tournament. And we have to also remember the margin of error that exists for these teams that get, the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not taking anything away from Florida Atlantic and what it accomplished last year. But Florida Atlantic was fortunate to beat Memphis by a slim margin in the round of 32. Florida Atlantic then did not have to play top-seeded Purdue in the round of 32. It had to play Fairleigh Dickinson to get to the Sweet 16. It gets to the Sweet 16. Who does it play? Tennessee. Who didn't Tennessee have available? Zakai Ziegler, its starting point guard. And then Florida Atlantic obviously beat a very good Kansas State team in the Elite Eight. So this reminds me a little bit of when Eric Musselman had that team at Nevada with Cody and Caleb Martin, and they went to the transfer portal and they added reinforcements. But it's not the identical thing to Purdue, but it's similar in the sense that we almost don't feel like the season's going to start for Florida Atlantic until it gets into the NCAA tournament to see if it can replicate the success. But the good thing for Florida Atlantic is it has the resume to get there, and that's because of the work that the Owls did during the non-conference portion of the schedule, beating Arizona, beating Butler, beating Texas A&M, and beating Virginia Tech. But, Zach, you know as well as I do, this is only January.
Yeah, and we got a long way still to go to get to March. Jon Rothstein here with us. So in college football, we had Nick Saban walk away a few weeks ago. We know the last few years, right? Jay Wright walked away. You had Coach K retire. Roy Williams retire as well. Is there an older coach now, or maybe a coach that has that legendary status right now, whether it's a Calipari, an Izzo, or whoever, Bill Self, that like you're kind of monitoring to say, maybe this person hangs it up a little bit closer than what we anticipated?
I think you're always monitoring, but somebody told me a long time ago, never speculate on speculation. And I think to be a college basketball coach in today's climate with the transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness, it's a lot more time consuming to be a head coach in college basketball than it was 10, 15 years ago. But a lot of these guys, and you know this, Zach, they don't do other things. They don't have other things that they would want to necessarily immerse themselves in. I've, talked to Tom Izzo about this. I've talked to Bill Self about this. Tom Izzo is somebody who I could never see entertaining retirement. Bill Self told me in a conversation I had with him a couple of weeks ago that because of what he went through health-wise recently, he has never been more appreciative just to go to work every day and go to practice, because remember, he couldn't coach last year in the NCAA tournament. And I spent some time in Miami in the preseason with Jim Larinaga, and, Miami's put together a terrific recruiting class, but I asked him flat out, could you imagine a life without coaching? And he told me absolutely not. And that's somebody who, again, took his second program to a Final Four last spring. And I think, Zach, in a lot of ways, coaching for these guys and the adrenaline that comes with success and winning is like a drug. I asked Jim Larinaga, what do you think about now that you've gotten Miami to a Final Four? Because he always used to tell me after he took George Mason to a Final Four, all he thought about was going back to another Final Four. He said to me, it's real simple. Winning a national championship. That's what I think about.
He is Jon Rothstein, great college basketball insider for CBS Sports. He joins us on behalf of FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Jon, always great to catch up with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. We sleep in May.
You got it. There he is, Jon Rothstein, joining us on CBS Sports Radio. It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question, and it's brought to you by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Spectacular college basketball conversation right there with Jon Rothstein. We will take a time out here on CBS Sports Radio. Still to come. In about 45 minutes from now, we will debut Winkler Wednesdays with our pal Bart Winkler, who will join us each and every Wednesday right here on CBS Sports Radio. You can listen to Bart's show Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern. Be a good company guy here. Many of the same CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, and the free Odyssey app. So Bart Winkler coming up in about 45 minutes from now. And then Drew Tranquill from the Kansas City Chiefs. Started his career with the Chargers, now is in year 1 with Kansas City, and he's going to have a big role this Sunday up against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. He'll stop by in the final hour of the show at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. But when we come on back, the Hall of Fame results came out yesterday in Cooperstown, and there's still one thing that annoys me about the Hall of Fame voters. We'll talk about that when we return.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, anyway, we go hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Winkler Wednesdays with Bart Winkler going to debut 40 minutes from now. We'll get into a little Hall of Fame conversation with Major League Baseball in just a second. But real quickly, a few NFL notes. Deebo Samuel not practicing today because of the shoulder injury. Kyle Shanahan did reveal to reporters, and his status for the NFC Championship game up against the Detroit Lions is unknown. I know that Kyle Shanahan said earlier in the week that he was 50-50. I don't give a rat's ass if Deebo Samuel's not practicing this entire week. I gotta think that he's going to give it a go on Sunday. Now, they should still be able to beat the Detroit Lions without Deebo Samuel. Deebo, though, you could make the case as the second most important player on the San Francisco 49ers, at least on their offense, maybe the entire team. I think McCaffrey is 1, and then I would say Deebo Samuel is 2, and Trent Williams would be 3, at least just looking at the offense, and we talked about that yesterday. And the only time that the 49ers, for a big chunk of the season, looked human this year was when Deebo Samuel was out. Now, last week, at first we thought it was a concussion. Then he got back on the field. Then it was a shoulder injury, and he came out of that second half. And I forget who the sideline reporter was, but they were like, oh, we're unsure if he's going to return to the game or not. And then immediately Fox shows a video of Deebo Samuel casually walking out of the locker room onto the field, and he was in a sweatshirt with no helmet and no shoulder pads. And it was like, okay, I don't think he's going to play. I don't need insider information. I don't need sources to tell me that when a guy comes out of the locker room to start the second half and he's in sweatpants, a sweatshirt, no shoulder pads, and no helmet, it's pretty obvious that his status, he was going to be ruled out. And then shortly after that, that was what did transpire. But that is something to monitor. I would still believe that Deebo is going to play. I'll be shocked if he doesn't at least give it a go. But how effective will he be is going to be a major storyline for the 49ers as they head into their home NFC Championship game up against Detroit. According to Jeff Darlington, Mike Vrabel has met with Falcons owner Arthur Blank at Blank's home. Actually, that's going to occur later today in Atlanta. And then after that, he will fly to Carolina tonight to meet with the Panthers on Thursday. That's actually like the first serious candidate that the Panthers are going to have that would resonate a response of like, yeah, that'd be a good hire. And yeah, that would be a big-time hire. Now, I don't believe that Tepper and Vrabel would mesh well. I think Tepper's going to have to do really what he did for the GM spot. I'm not saying promote from within, but get someone that was not on a lot of other people's radar. Because there is a bad reputation around the league with David Tepper. The one good thing, though, that David Tepper has is he's the richest owner in the NFL. So he could throw a lot more cash at someone, and that could maybe turn a no into a yes. But the Falcons, it's weird. Like, let's go around the room right now. Everyone thought that Belichick was going to land with the Atlanta Falcons. I will still say that Belichick winds up in Atlanta. But if Belichick doesn't get the Falcons job, whether that's him not wanting the job or others in the organization saying Bill does things such his way that even though Arthur Blank wants him, others are then going to fear for their job and tell Arthur Blank, maybe you shouldn't do this, and maybe Blank has a soft spot for the others in the organization and trust the others in the organization. But it is weird that we are now sitting here on Wednesday, and this seemed like a foregone conclusion last week that Belichick was going to get the Falcons job. And here we are not even having an announcement on who's going to get the job. But the Belichick thing, I guess you could say, starting to lose some steam and some momentum, which is how it's being talked about. Now, he could still go get the job. But now they are still talking to other candidates where there's been reports out there, and I know they've been conflicting about Jim Harbaugh. And now we know that he's meeting today the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Blank with Mike Vrabel. So let's go around the room, do a little yes or no, and you can have an explanation. I'll start with Stu. Do you think that Bill Belichick's going to be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons?
If you asked me this a few days ago, I would have said 100%. Now I think it's more down to like 15%.
Wow.
They've interviewed so many candidates, and it's just taken so long. Where if you're interviewing a guy like Belichick,
he's really interviewing you.
Yeah, and it's going to be something that's done one interview. Maybe you have a second interview with his family, whatever, whatnot. But the fact it's taken this long, I think there's something else to it. I don't think he ends up there.
I can't see Bill really bringing his family to these interviews. So first, he just had a breakup. But then, like, who are you going to bring? His sons? Who may be a part of the coaching staff anyway,
up-and-coming coaches,
or getting offers to go join Gerard Mayo's coaching staff. I would love to be a fly on the wall for the Belichick interview. I can't even begin to process what the Belichick interview is like. So you were at 100% last week, and now you're down to 15%.
Yes.
Wow. Samter, what say you on Belichick to Atlanta, to the ATL? What's the tell?
It never felt like the right fit for me. So while everyone was fawning over Belichick to the Falcons, I was saying, like, that just feels weird. It feels like Jerry Rice in a Seahawks uniform. It feels like Emmitt Smith in a Cardinals uniform.
Yeah.
It just didn't ever make sense to me. I guess I've seen the reports that he doesn't want to be in like a major market like New York or Boston or LA. So I get that side of it, that Atlanta is big enough, but it's not so big that maybe he can kind of, handle the media a little bit differently than being in a place like Boston or New York.
Was the media
LA.
ever a problem in Boston with Belichick? Belichick doesn't give you anything.
I think over the course of years, Belichick kind of trained the media in a certain way, but I mean...
Well, yeah, they were afraid to ask questions
right,
because they knew if they asked a legit question, they get yelled at.
Yeah, but there's 20 different newspapers and two big sports stations.
It's football. Wherever Belichick goes, he's going to get covered.
For sure, but I think
it's
in
the
Atlanta,
Chargers. The Chargers like that one team that for some reason they just don't get the coverage.
But I think in Atlanta, you got like one or two newspapers. You got like one big, sports station down there. You probably have like one big TV star down there, but for the most part, you're not getting the same type of coverage in Atlanta. But it doesn't feel like the right fit. Like, I understand that there's talent on the Falcons, and he just needs to get a quarterback. But like, just needs to get the quarterback. It's kind of a big deal. Like, that's the one thing that you kind of want to have in place. And the Falcons it doesn't feel like Bill Belichick. Belichick feels like Commanders, Chargers, like a franchise.
It's not going to be the Commanders.
No, he's not going to go there. It could be the Chargers. Like let's say if Harbaugh doesn't go to the Chargers. Mm-hmm. Let's say he takes the Falcons. Mm-hmm. Let's say he goes back to Michigan, which I don't think is going to happen. Bill wants to coach next year. That has been made abundantly clear. Right.
And no one else, to our knowledge yet, has had interest in Bill Belichick. The only one we know he's talking to, maybe it's hush-hush because Belichick does things secretive, is Atlanta. I just wonder, was Atlanta's Belichick stream first or was it Arthur Blank streams first? Because I would think it's more Arthur Blank approach Belichick before Belichick approach Arthur Blank because this got out there. There's a reason this got out there. A lot of times with Belichick, you can't crack him and he operates in a secret way. And I would imagine the only cold feet at this point would be others in the organization saying, my job's not safe if Belichick comes here. Like, I may be there for a year, but then a year from now, Belichick is going to get everything that he wants because when you bring in a coach of the status of Bill Belichick, you are handing over your organization to Bill Belichick. And you're going to, like, the only way to allow Bill to cook is to let Bill do whatever he wants. But I do think Atlanta's a good fit for a multitude of reasons. They have talent with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Ryan Nielsen. I know he just signed on with the Jaguars as defensive coordinator, but he did a good job with that young up-and-coming defense, especially in the secondary, with how many secondary players Bill did produce in New England that were only really great in his system in New England. If the goal, and I think the goal for Bill, and this is what Bill is not about, the goal for Bill, I think, at this point of his career is to just go to a place that gets him the win record as soon as possible. And he's not that far away from the Don Shula win record. You know, you're under 20 wins away. And for Bill, it used to be about Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. I don't think he's looking at the Falcons as a team that he's going to win a Super Bowl. I think he looks at the Falcons as a team that I could go win the NFC South next year. I could go win 9 or 10 games next year. And I could just bring back winning. But there's many ways you define winning. I think with Bill, we usually think of it as a Super Bowl, but there are other ways that you could define winning.
That's actually really interesting. I haven't really heard that before, that Belichick's focus may not be on winning titles anymore. It might just be on getting the record quickly and then getting out.
Yeah.
And if that's the case...
He's a history guy. That's what Bill's all about, the history. Like, does anyone... It's weird. Every other sport, like baseball, we care about the records. Baseball's the one sport where you really care about the records. There's so many different records in football. Like, you do one in the regular season, then it's the combine of the postseason as well. Does anyone seriously care nationally? Like, will anyone look at Belichick differently if he gets this record or not? If he's 2-1 with the most wins in the history of the NFL? Like, I don't. But that's important to Bill because Bill is a history nerd. Like, this is a guy that will give you a 20-minute answer on the history of long snappers. He was great on TV when he was with Rich Eisen doing the top 100 list and breaking down the greatest players to ever play the game. So I think that matters to Bill, and Bill's different, and that's what makes him one of one. By the way, when talking about Belichick, I'm actually in a fight with our boss's father right now on social media over Bill Belichick. Spike Eskin, our boss for, I don't know, the next few months because he's taken a great job at Sports Radio 94 WIP. He's going to be the afternoon host along with our guys, Ike Reese and Jack Fritz. Spike's father is a legend, legendary radio guy. I'm actually friendly-ish, for what this is in the business with Howard, and Howard's been extremely kind to me. But I know Howard absolutely hates the Patriots, and Howard is extremely biased. And once Howard, and Spike fights with his father all the time when it comes to sports, but once Howard says something, you could argue logic, and it doesn't matter what you argue, it's wrong to Howard because it's not his opinion. Howard would be a great politician because he just spews his stuff, but he doesn't listen to the other side of this. So, Angelo Cataldi, who I love and is a mentor, Angelo Cataldi once told me that if Andy Reid got a colonoscopy, you would see Howard Eskin in there because of how much that Howard has sucked up to Andy Reid throughout the years. So Howard puts out this tweet the other day that his top 5 coaches of all time are Don Shula, Tom Landry, Vince Lombardi, Bill Walsh, and Andy Reid. He did not put Bill Belichick in there, and he said Bill Belichick, his words, not mine, is an overrated coach, and he's nowhere close to being the greatest coach of all time. So Howard and I ended up getting into a conversation just directly, because I don't care about the other guys, right? I'm not saying that those other guys aren't great coaches. They all are. But in the same era of Bill and Andy Reid, I just think it's absurd to say that Andy Reid's a better coach all time than Bill Belichick. And all I wrote to to Howard was, Howard, find me the playoff games where Andy Reid defeated Belichick. Andy is 0-3 in the playoffs against Bill. Also, we all know if Belichick was the coach of the Eagles, you would instantly do a 180 and start to love him because that's where it was the part of this. Howard is the impetus of this. Howard is a sideline reporter for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he doesn't want the Eagles to move on from Nick Sirianni and hire Bill Belichick, and the Eagles aren't moving on from Nick Sirianni. So to that post that I had, Howard responds, Belichick was found to have cheated that year when he beat Andy Reid in the Super Bowl, and as I pointed out, he had Tom Brady. No Tom Brady, Belichick is a 0, case closed. And then all I said was, did Andy beat Bill when he had Mahomes in the playoffs and was at home? Also, are we talking about the same Tom Brady who you once, Howard, refused to say was the greatest QB of all time in a training camp conversation that I had with me, you, Peter King, and Merrill Reese? That Tom Brady? So I'll give you one more response here from Howard because he does entertain me. He then goes back, and this is how low it gets for Howard. Bill Belichick really shouldn't have won 6 Super Bowls. Cheated and won. Pete Carroll, head coach of Seattle, and Kyle Shanahan, the OC in Atlanta, which he called him the IC. He meant OC. But that's an old guy not being able to hit the right button on a phone. He made terrible play calls to give the Patriots 2 other wins and win in playoff with Tuck rule that led to the Super Bowl win. That's 4 bogus Super Bowls. Tom Brady, not the best ever, but damn good. And without him, Belichick is a losing head coach. He is so overrated, not even a debate. So I said, you know what? I had a drink last night. I had a spicy margarita. I was, enjoying myself. I didn't even see this tweet until 8 hours later. I go, I'm going to send out a late night tweet to Howard Eskin. And I wrote, as silly as your last post is, I'll play your game. So if Shanahan didn't blow a 10-point lead with 7.5 to play, Andy doesn't beat the 49ers. If Sirianni doesn't blow a 10-point second-half lead, Andy doesn't beat Philly. If Andy doesn't have Mahomes, he never wins a Super Bowl. It is just amazing to me. As it's funny, every time I say Sirianni, my phone Siri goes off, as I just realized it was transcribing everything I just said into the phone, which was a lot. So I apologize to you, Siri. But it's amazing how in some people's mind, they just can't acknowledge how great Tom Brady and Bill Belichick was. And the reason why they can't, it's because out of pure hatred and jealousy because of how much that they won. So I love Howard Eskin. But the fact that I'm in a Twitter beef with him now over this is just flat out ridiculous. And I'm sure Howard wouldn't agree with my next point, which Alex Rodriguez belongs in the Hall of Fame. Manny Ramirez belongs in the Hall of Fame. Gary Sheffield belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I saw the results yesterday from Cooperstown. It doesn't shock me that Adrian Beltre gets in, Joe Mauer gets in, Todd Helton gets in. But I can't stand the Baseball Writers Association of America, and here's why. They're selective. And they're selective in terms of which steroid guys they allow in. And they only allow in the guys that were nice to them, that did a good interview with them, and they like them. Like David Ortiz, there's allegations. Mike Piazza. I love Mike Piazza. There's been allegations. It's funny, a guy like John Heyman, right? Our buddy John Heyman, or Mr. Arson Judge, that's how I'll always remember him, where Twitter has just done a disservice to his career because he gets so many things wrong on Twitter, but he happens to be a good writer. He just is terrible with Twitter. So John Heyman, he never voted for Mike Piazza. Like the first 3 or 4 times Piazza didn't vote for him. The first time Ivan Rodriguez Pudge was on the ballot, he voted for him. What's the difference? Like, Pudge was once asked, did you do steroids? His legit answer was, only God knows the answer to that. But you had no problem overlooking Pudge, but you had a problem going after Piazza. And now Bonds and Clemens aren't on the ballot. And I think Roger Clemens is one of the biggest jerks ever. I can't stand him, the least favorite baseball player of all time. But because he wasn't nice to the media or Barry Bonds wasn't nice to the media, now you're not going to put those guys in the Hall of Fame. And you put Ortiz in the Hall of Fame, but we can't put A-Rod in the Hall of Fame. And Manny Ramirez is one of the greatest hitters I've ever seen. I know he failed multiple tests. And, right, Gary Sheffield, the whole cream thing and all that, and I don't know what's true or what's not. He's 500 home runs. My biggest point with the Hall of Fame is you either put all the steroid guys in with allegations or none of them. And I even go as far, I know people don't like that I say Rafael Palmeiro should be a Hall of Famer. Mark McGwire should be a Hall of Famer. People don't like that because they know that they cheated. Here's the bottom line, though. Major League Baseball allowed it. And it was good for Major League Baseball. Those numbers were so prodigious. Why do you think they didn't try to stop it earlier? Because it was good for the game. So the numbers, even though you could look at them sideways and say they have an asterisk on them, that's fine. But Major League Baseball allowed it, and you put managers that knew what was going on in the Hall. Bud Selig, right, in the Hall, the commissioner of Major League Baseball at the time. So all those guys get to go in, and some of the guys that were accused of doing steroids, whether they did or not, we don't know, they get in, but then some other guys don't because what? They didn't do an interview with you? Or you didn't like the way that they conducted themselves with their roid rage in the clubhouse? Like, give me a break. Seriously. I am pro put the guys that did steroids in the Hall of Fame because the Hall of Fame is to honor the greatest baseball players to ever play. You could be a cheater, and you could still be one of the greatest baseball players to ever play. You have to acknowledge that greatness, and don't put them in an exhibit in the Hall, but then when you get into the plaque room in the Hall of Fame, we're not going to allow those guys in. Like, Cooperstown has become a sham. It really has. I hate to say it, but it has. And, a guy like Curt Schilling, who, don't get me wrong, I told Curt Schilling this to his face. I used to put Curt Schilling on the air for years. I do not agree with what he says about politics, all right? But a guy like Curt Schilling clearly isn't getting into the Hall of Fame because of some of the stupid stuff he says. Guy was a phenomenal regular season pitcher. He's an all-time great postseason pitcher, and that doesn't have to do with steroids. But it just shows you the Hall of Fame, the writers, whether if a player was nice or not to them, holds that either in their favor or against them when determining who are the greatest baseball players of all time. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
The debut of Winkler Wednesdays coming your way 15 minutes from now on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. But first, the news brief. Let's start with Lamar Jackson on facing Patrick Mahomes this weekend in the AFC title game.
I don't like competing against him at all. But yeah, I mean, he's a great quarterback. Definitely a Hall of Famer. It's not even it's a no-brainer. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. But it's just, I believe it's just two greats, up-and-coming greats, just going toe-to-toe. You know, like a heavyweight fight, heavyweight matchup. That's just what I see.
So Nick Wright does this like bit on FS1, which I actually think it's a good bit. And it's a segment. I shouldn't say bit, because a bit has like a negative connotation, as if like he doesn't really believe what he's saying. But it's a segment where it's called Mahomes Mountain. And it's who's kind of like reaching to the top of that mountain to eventually kick off Patrick Mahomes. Where everyone still knows, regardless of what happens this weekend or in 2 weekends from now, he's still the best quarterback in football. But it is cool to see the contestants that have been there, at least in the AFC, trying to prevent Patrick Mahomes from going back to a Super Bowl and winning another Super Bowl. And there have been players in the regular season to take down Mahomes, right? We saw Lamar Jackson a few years back take down Mahomes in the regular season. We've seen Josh Allen in the regular season take down Patrick Mahomes. But the only guy that's had success in the AFC in both the regular season and the postseason has been Joe Burrow. And you look at the future, the AFC is loaded with quarterback talent. Whether it is Josh Allen, who has failed multiple times now in the postseason to get the job done up against the Chiefs, whether it is a guy like Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. We'll see if Trevor Lawrence can get his damn act together. You know, Deshaun Watson coming back off an injury and a lot of years of being away from the game. You know, Tua Tagovailoa, if you want to throw him in there. There's a pool of guys. But really, in the AFC, the only three guys that I think you look at that say can do it are Burrow, who has done it, and then the other two are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who've only had success in the regular season up against Lamar. And I know Josh Allen a few years back put them in position to win the game. The defense and special teams messed up the game. But I'm talking about just success. Do you win the game or not? And I do think that's good for football when you have a bunch of guys that are trying to prevent the guy, the king, from getting back to the Super Bowl. Like when Brady played, well, Brady played for a long time, but you had different runs at guys, whether it was Peyton Manning, whether it was a guy like Phillip Rivers who never won up against Brady. Like there was Big Ben never won up against Brady in the postseason. There was Mahomes at the end did not win in the postseason up against Brady. There was a big list of people. Joe Flacco, ironically, had like some of the most success up against Tom Brady. They try to tug at Superman's cape. Well, you never take the cape for multiple years, but you just got to take it for 1 year from preventing him to win it each and every year. So that's what makes this matchup so fun, is now it's a new installment, and we finally get to see Lamar up against Mahomes in the postseason. Here is Jason Kelce. I watched the entirety of this episode this morning on the New Heights podcast. Jason Kelce going shirtless in the stands in Buffalo.
I'm not going to lie, I gave Kylie a heads up. The moment we got into the suite, I said, I'm taking my shirt off and I'm jumping out of that suite. And she said, Jason, don't you dare. I was like, hey, it's letting you know what's happening. I'm not asking for permission. I'm doing this.
Once a Kelsey man's determined, there's no stopping him.
And she was already telling me to be on my best behavior because we were meeting Taylor.
This is hilarious.
I was like, Kylie, when I met you, the first day I met you, I was blacked out drunk and fell asleep at the bar. This is part of the charm. This is part of the Jason Kelce charm. I want to make my best first impression. This is my best chance.
My best first impression is the worst impression ever, so I could just build from that point on. Yeah, exactly.
It does seem like there is a genuine love that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have from one another, at least from what we could see. When this first started, I think a lot of people thought this was a gimmick and it was a publicity stunt, right? Taylor getting into the NFL circle, obviously for Travis Kelce, who was already a star, now becoming a mega star. So I'll go to one person and one person only here, and that is our Swiftie expert in Stuart Kovacs, who he doesn't just go with his girlfriend to Taylor Swift because he loves his girlfriend. He goes because he also loves Taylor Swift. So, Stu, do you think we will eventually have wedding bells? Do you think there will be an engagement down the road where you will have Travis Kelce getting down on one knee and asking Taylor Swift to marry him?
I do. I'm kind of like you. It does feel kind of genuine at this point. So, yeah, I do think that is something not in the very near future, like months, but maybe within the next year or two, we'll get something like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's imminent in terms of them getting married or in terms of them getting engaged. But I do think, and maybe I'll end up being wrong on this, but I do think that you will eventually see, I don't know how long the relationship's or marriage is going to last. I hope it would last longer than Chris Humphries and Kim Kardashian. But I do think that you will one day see Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce get engaged. Here is Draymond Green on the Draymond Green Show via The Volume when Kevin Durant last week was trying to put himself in the GOAT conversation and asking why he wasn't. This is how Draymond responded to it.
KD, he said, because I went to the Warriors. He's speaking on the GOAT conversation. Why is he not in the GOAT conversation? I think KD is one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. The way KD scored the ball is so effortless. He's never seen a bad shot. Obviously, I'm not one that's going to be like, KD's championships aren't real. Stop it. There's no championship that's not real. Steph didn't get the credit that Steph gets today until 2022 when he led this team to a championship and won the Finals MVP. When all else was failing, Steph said, all right, fellas, come on, let's go there. Period. You got to go do what Steph did to get to that conversation.
Draymond's actually 100% spot on. And the thing that I was disappointed about with Kevin Durant is he embraced being the villain, and then he let the backlash from being the villain allow him to be sensitive. He should have just stayed in Golden State and gave the middle finger to everybody and kept on winning championships, and eventually people would just have to praise what he did. Whether you like what KD did or not in terms of going to Golden State, everywhere else, though, he's been an incredible player, but he blew a 3-1 lead with OKC. Then you look at Brooklyn, that was a disaster because he couldn't be honest with his friend Kyrie Irving. And so far with Phoenix, I'm not going to say that it's worked, but I can't go out there and say that's a failure right now, but it has been disappointing so far, and we'll see what happens this year, but I don't think it's going to lead to a championship. And the damning part for Kevin Durant is the Charles Barkley comment, the bus driver and the bus rider, and Charles Barkley's been spot on with that. The passenger and then the bus driver comment that Charles Barkley made. Here is Nick Sirianni on what his role is going to be this year with the team. The Eagles are going to hire a new defensive coordinator. They just got rid of their offensive coordinator. There's been some reports with the Dolphins mutually parting ways that you could have Vic Fangio, who was a consultant in 2022 with the Eagles, could wind back up as the DC in Philly. But here is Sirianni on his role with the team moving forward.
The offensive coordinator is going to be in charge of the offense, and the defensive coordinator is going to be in charge of the defense. What is your role going to be?
The head coach. the football
What
team.
does that entail? How does it change?
Yeah, I guess it'd be this very similar to what's going on right now. My job is to be the head coach of the team, not the head coach of the offense, not the head coach of the defense, not the head coach of the special teams, but be the head coach of the football team. And so that's building the culture, that's making sure the culture's working, with our 5 core values, having a relationship with the guys on the football team, because I know when I have that connection with the guys on the football team, that's when the culture is working at high level.
Well, your culture sucked last year. So your culture sucked last year, and now you're getting rid of the offensive coordinator who called the plays. You got rid of the defensive coordinator as well. I think it's a fair question. What the heck do you do? And if you can't even keep peace in the locker room, then you shouldn't be the head coach, especially with the really good options and the plethora of good options that are out there. And finally, here's Howie Roseman on why the Eagles are keeping Nick Sirianni.
The important thing for us to look at is before the stretch, which was a difficult stretch, not diminishing the 1-6 stretch at the end. We were 26-5 over the last 31 games. I mean, that's 4 times the amount of games that we played over this stretch. That is hard to do in the National Football League. That is hard to find a head coach in this league who has that record of success. I think we were 33-11 up until that point with Nick. We made the playoffs 3 straight years. Again, not okay finishing 1-6, so I'm not sitting up here saying that, but it is hard to find somebody who can do those sort of things.
I don't root for Nick Sirianni to get fired. I do think he should be fired. But I kind of do hope that the NFL schedule makers give him a tough first 4 weeks just to see how he's going to handle that. And then you'll learn a lot about Nick Sirianni, because that's going to be the coach. I don't know if there will be a hotter seat entering next year than Nick Sirianni with the Philadelphia Eagles. All righty, that's a news brief. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, the debut of Winkler Wednesdays when we return in 5 minutes. But update time first. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, after yesterday's blockbuster news regarding the Bucs comes the second part of that equation. The worst-kept secret over the past 24 hours becomes reality, with Doc Rivers agreeing to be their new head coach. He has 25 years of coaching experience, but the dubious distinction of being 6-10 in playoff Game 7s has overseen 3 teams that blew 3-1 playoff series leads. The Bucs will host the Cavaliers, who are right in the middle of the playoff contenders in the East. They ended tonight's game in Milwaukee, 4th in the conference, riding an 8-game winning streak, currently best in the league. Head coach J.B. Bickerstaff said getting off to a good start has been at the root of their surge.
Jared Allen wins the tip, and we get the first possession. We get an opportunity to score first. And then our defense has just been incredible. Our guys have been elite on that end of the floor.
It's unlikely that Rivers will coach the team tonight. Deebo Samuel still working through his shoulder injury. Didn't practice today, but head coach Kyle Shanahan said the Pro Bowl wide receiver is feeling better. Chiefs Pro Bowl guard Joe Thuney not practicing today. His status for Sunday's AFC Championship is uncertain. And Vic Fangio out after 1 season as Dolphins defensive coordinator. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Vegas, baby. Hang with Maggie and Perloff throughout the NFL playoffs all the way to Sin City.
24/7 on your local affiliate, the free Odyssey app, or SiriusXM Channel 158. CBS Sports Radio. It's all here.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
It's a battle for CBS Sports Radio. Zach.
Lethargic, putrid, pathetic. Quitters. They're quitters. What a joke.
Bart.
Something fun to talk about. That's what we do here. It's like, hey, guys, it's like we're just hanging out at a bar talking sports.
It's time for Winkler Wednesday. Only on the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, rocking and rolling. I guess with that intro, Samter sets a tone that he basically wants Bart and yours truly to just be a bunch of zoo animals and perform for him and just fight to the death each and every Wednesday on CBS Sports Radio with Winkler Wednesdays. And you could watch on youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio where we stream the show. And Bart just let out a very intimidating, growl. You know, like a little look to him. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm ready for this each and every Wednesday. Bart, my friend. Bart Winkler, the host of the Bart Winkler Show, which you can listen to Monday through Fridays here on CBS Sports Radio, many of the same CBS Sports Radio affiliates from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern. How are things going? I want to look out for your mental health first and foremost. Are you surviving working so far with David Shepard? Everything good with you?
Oh, Shep's been great.
You could stop
still
lying.
getting used. No. He's been great. I'm still getting used to some of these people that call at 1 a.m. But they are sports fans, and I'm happy to meet them. And it's been fun. It's been a fun couple of weeks. There's been a lot to talk about. Last night was a fun kind of adventure in trying to figure out what CNN Sports was.
Yeah.
And if Doc Rivers was actually hired or not for my beloved Bucks. So it's fun, man. It's fun.
We'll get to the Bucks in just a second, but you have a very loyal following, and I've come to know a lot of your loyal following just interacting throughout the years. There's this guy with like 4 names, so I don't even know how to pronounce his Twitter name handle. In parentheses, it says Big D. He chimed in to me on Twitter. He said, "Yo, man, listening on the road in beautiful Wisconsin. Heard you were putting Winkler on every Wednesday. Should throw some bleep around about the Bart-O-meter and let him know it needs some fine-tuning." I almost just cursed on my own radio show. Also, Green Bay local radio debut of new Joe Barry tune thumbs up. What is the Bart-O-meter, and did the first Bart-O-meter become a disaster like what Big D was saying?
No, the Bart-O-meter, because everybody does like rankings in sports radio, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's a great way to talk about topics subjectively and in order. But I don't want to do that. So I put it up to the Bart-O-meter, which is a device I have that I input what I want it to tell us, and then it tells us the results. So last week we debuted it, and the Bart-O-meter was trying to tell us who had the most pressure coming into the divisional round. And a lot of people called and said it's the Niners, and a lot of people called and said it was the Ravens. And I personally, I saw those arguments and agree with it, but the Bart-O-meter, and this was on Thursday nights, okay, the Bart-O-meter said it was the Bills.
Wow.
And people were calling and being mad at the Bart-O-meter. And I said, guys, I'm just telling you what it says. And people didn't understand. And now as we see the Bills lost, I think there was a lot of pressure on the Bills. They lost. There's a lot of questions about their future. There's a lot of questions about how they're going to keep getting back to this point. There's a lot of questions about, is Josh Allen's legacy just losing to the Chiefs? So that's what the Bart-O-meter is. I think it's a success, and it'll get another spin tomorrow.
And you do this every Thursday, you said?
Well, I've done it one time, but
Okay.
I plan to do it a second time, and then hopefully every Thursday from there on.
I think the Bart-O-meter has some pretty just interesting ears, because I will say Thursday last week, the lead of our show was why Josh Allen has the most pressure on him entering divisional round weekend. And then there was people like, I don't know, Michael Samter may be a name who was trying to say that it was the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm just wondering, like, if I took a test next to the Bart-O-meter, would it maybe have some wandering eyes trying to look onto my paper?
No, but I will tell you that the Bart-O-meter concept was developed on your show.
Was it
when
really?
I filled in for you last Wednesday.
Wow.
So I did technically steal.
Well, who gave
from
you that
your
idea?
show.
Because Stu hasn't given me a good idea since I started the show, and neither has Samter. So who gave you the idea?
Well, we stole from your show, but I stole from me, but also from your show.
Gotcha. Did you come up with it, or was it Samter?
I think it was a group effort. I'll give those guys credit.
It started out as the playoff pressure meter and turned into Bart's barometer, which now it turned into the Bart-O-meter. So it's seen 3 different
Well,
iterations.
you're a fraud. Hey, you give Bart, and I love Bart. No one at this company loves Bart more than me. But you give Bart, as my producer, this great idea, and I don't get this. I'm gone one day. I finally get sick. I'm out one GD day, and you give Bart an idea.
Change your name to Bart, and then you can have it.
The Gelbo meter? The Zack attack meter? I don't know, Bart.
Well, also is
I would offer you a trade,
also,
Samter for Shep, but I would need some cash considerations coming on back to me.
No, because I came into your show guesting last week with ideas. I don't know if you just sit down and expect these guys to give you the outline or what.
Trust me, I come in with many ideas. Many ideas. Bart Winkler here with us, Winkler Wednesdays. So the initial reaction yesterday, before we get to the Doc Rivers stuff, Adrian Griffin fired after getting off to a 30-13 start with your Milwaukee Bucks. You got Bucks loss. Your initial reaction was what?
I was actually surprised. And I was, to be honest with you, I was a little upset just because there were a lot of Bucks fans that wanted this from like the second week of the season, where they just saw, hey, this isn't going to work. This is a problem. And I said, this is way too early to talk about firing a rookie head coach. And I still think it was too early. So I think I will spin it to say I was right about that. But also the Bucks fans that saw problems saw real problems. And their record is good. But if you watch this team, there does seem to be some disconnect between players and coach. And I think what happened was Adrian Griffin got put in a spot where, you know, for a guy who's been kind of chasing this goal for a while, this dream, this was not a great first opportunity for him, because the Bucks are a championship, like they're a championship contender.
Championship
and
or bust.
I don't know that hiring a rookie head coach was the right move. I think what the Bucks saw last year was they need a change. And so what do? We're not getting rid of Giannis. We're not getting rid of Chris. We're not getting rid of Drew. We want this core. We got to change our coach. And then a couple months later, it's like, oh, wait a minute. We can get Damian Lillard. And so if that would have happened in like June, maybe Mike Budenholzer's still the coach, and they just like that would have been the change they needed. So they get Griff here. It's not working. Apparently Doc Rivers has been like, you know,
backstabbing
around the shoulder for the last few months, and they make the change. So you feel bad for Adrian Griffin, but the guy came in. I think the players gave him a chance, but then quickly said, this isn't the guy for us. And I think this puts a lot of pressure on, like, if the Bucks didn't win a championship this year, let's say that's the goal, which I think it is. If they didn't win a championship this year, the blame is all on Adrian Griffin. But now, since he's fired, I don't even think the blame would go on Doc. I think the blame goes on Giannis, Dame, Middleton. Like, you guys wanted this. So the blame now goes on them instead of the coach.
So this is a players-driven league, and I'm not saying that all coaches should get a pass. And clearly there was something up with Griffin from the start with the whole Terry Stotts fallout, and clearly he couldn't connect with Giannis and Dame. This is all on Giannis now. They don't make this decision without Giannis's approval. I was also reading something else that they wanted Nick Nurse, and then Giannis didn't want Nick Nurse, who would have been a good hire as well, an experienced coach that won a championship. You know, I don't know right now. Like, Giannis is a player that, a two-time MVP, you know me, I love Giannis. He's already a champion, but it's now about adding to your legacy to become one of the greatest players to ever play this game. And when you look at pressure with getting rid of Griffin, there's not many players that are more under pressure the rest of the season than Giannis, because this is directly on Giannis the rest of the way, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, and the Bucks I don't think would change anything because they hired the coach that he wanted. And then they got him to sign an extension.
And you got to do what Giannis wants. Yeah, you 100% have to.
Right, but that's I think that John Horst, the GM, really his whole job for the last 8 years has been keep Giannis here. Win a title if you can, but keep Giannis here because that will give you the most opportunity. Now that they won a title, they've had a couple of years where they've fallen short and they want to win a title again. I think what they might have realized is this year cannot be a year where they don't win. You get Damian Lillard here, you think, okay, realistically, when will you win a championship? One in the next 3 years would be good. Maybe they're watching this and saying, I don't know if we have that much time. We can't afford to waste a year. If we've got these two guys here, we've got to win now because we don't know what the future holds.
And I'll make a prediction right now. You know the Bucks are winning it all this year. You predicted it a few years ago where you lined up the chairs when they were down 0-2 to the Suns, and you ended up being right. Everyone is killing this Doc Rivers hire. And don't get me wrong. I don't think Doc Rivers is a good hire in the year of 2024. But when everyone is so adamant that it won't work, that's when it usually does work in sports. So get ready for another Bucks championship.
Well, I'd like to believe you, but this Game 7 record is bad. The amount of times he blows leads is bad. Now, is this a better team than he's had in a long time? You could say so. I still think, like, if you map this out, and maybe it never happens. I was really hoping Joe Flacco would go back to Baltimore and get that. But Doc could face a playoff trio in some order of the Sixers, the Celtics, and then maybe the Clippers in the finals. So this could all be setting up for, like, we think we're watching a season and whatever. No. We're just watching the Doc Rivers, revenge tour.
I got 30 seconds left. Just tell me who you have advancing to the Super Bowl.
I feel like the Niners knew they escaped one, and I want to take the Lions, but I think the Niners get there. And I really think the Chiefs like playing on the road. We've motivated them, but I'm going to go chalk and still go Ravens. Ravens have been my pick. I like Lamar to win it all.
He is Bart Winkler. You can listen to him tonight on many of these same CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, and the free Odyssey app. The Bart Winkler Show, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on CBS Sports Radio. The first edition of Winkler Wednesdays, as he'll join us on most Wednesdays right here on CBS Sports Radio at 4:40 p.m. Eastern. Bart, thank you, my friend.
Most Wednesdays. Thank you.
Yeah, well, my guys keep on giving you ideas. I may get rid of Bart Winkler. We'll go to JR Sport Brief Wednesdays here on CBS Sports Radio. Amy Lawrence Wednesdays here on CBS Sports Radio. We'll see how long we can put up with Bart before we end up looking at maybe some of the other people that are on the roster here at CBS Sports Radio. Drew Tranquill still to come for the Kansas City Chiefs 25 minutes from now. But when we return, the future of Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. Some predictions are already being made.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Hour number 3 of our radio program. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Drew Tranquill of the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? Going to stop by 20 minutes from now, getting set for the AFC Championship game in Baltimore this upcoming weekend. You got Chiefs at Ravens. We have the Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. The Final Four, as we will wait to see who is going to be going to the Super Bowl in Vegas 2 weeks from now. So Jeremy Fowler of ESPN talked to some league executives, anonymously, NFL executives, and they made some predictions for this upcoming offseason. There is one prediction in particular that I'm very curious if Stuart Kovacs would be in or out on, and that is the prediction that Russell Wilson will wind up with the Las Vegas Raiders. Stu, let's just say about 2 months from now, we got a breaking news alert that Russell Wilson is signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. That's assuming he gets released from the Denver Broncos. But I don't think anybody is actually thinking that Russell Wilson could be back in Denver, and it's probably heading towards a release. So let's say the domino falls that he gets released from the Broncos, and then he signs with the Raiders on a cheap deal in terms of the quarterback market.
Yeah,
would you be down for it?
I would be down for it. I was just going to say it depends the money that they would pay him. Like, they can't pay Russell Wilson like some of the contracts Russell Wilson has been getting.
Yeah.
They physically can't do it.
Well, no one's going to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it's a team-friendly deal, probably a short-term deal, yeah, I'm all for that because I think he would be an upgrade over Garoppolo, O'Connell, or really anybody else they can realistically get.
Now, I won't say who the person is, but I did talk to someone that knows Russell Wilson. And this was going back to the day that this whole thing did go down with the Denver Broncos when he got benched.
Was it Ciara?
No, I did not talk to Ciara. Dang. Sean Marash may have down the hall because that guy once thought that Ciara was hitting on Sean Marash because that's what someone of Ciara's fame does, hit on a radio producer who at the time, Marash has lost some weight. He's looking good. But at the time, Mraz was, how do you say it in a nice way? A portly fella?
That was the exact word I was going to use.
Yeah.
All right.
Little husky guy.
Big boned?
I wouldn't call Mraz big bone. I would not call him big bone. But the person said to me, and we talked about a few destinations, but the person just went out of their way to tell me, you got to remember that the contract is going to be on the cheap. And someone is going to be getting Russ on the cheap because of the fact he still owed a lot of money from the Denver Broncos. Like, that contract hasn't even started on the extension yet. with the Denver Broncos. So there is a lot of guaranteed money. Spencer Stakes says a good word for Mraz would be rotund. Not wrong. That's actually maybe the best word. But with how much money he's owed, I do believe the landing spot is more important to Russ than in terms of what the contract is going to be. Because if you just go take a money grab and go to the highest bidder, you could do that. But if you go to a crappy destination and can't turn your career around, then your NFL career is closer to being over than it is being able to continue for the next few years. Like, the next destination is really make or break on Russell Wilson. And I do believe that the destination is going to be more important than in terms of who's just going to give him the most money per year. And I look at a team like Minnesota. I think Minnesota could be in play. If you need a stopgap guy in Atlanta, that could be in play as well. And the Raiders, the Raiders could trade up in the draft to go get their guy. But I think that's easier said than done, especially when the first 3 picks are probably going to be quarterbacks this year in some order of Williams, May, and Daniels. And the first 3 teams, at least the Commanders and the Patriots, need a quarterback. And I do think the Bears are going to trade Justin Fields. So I do believe that the Bears are going to be drafting a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's a different conversation. But as long as it's, Stu, a 2-year deal, would you be okay with that? If I tell you it's a 2-year, $18 million a year type of deal, would that work for you?
Yeah, that's very, I was thinking somewhere around that, high teens, low 20s. I think that's very fair for 2 years.
Maybe if it's 2 years, $30 million, that's $15 million a year with incentives to make it up to $40, $45 million. I think that would be a bargain where, here's the thing with Russ. Russ was never going to live up to that contract after the first year in Denver. And there were more signs than we thought about the decline of Russ going into Denver, where we should have just known that everyone thought Pete Carroll was this stubborn old guy. He was right, and he was the closest to Russ, and he realized that Russ wasn't going to be the same player where Russ thought he was going to be and what Russ thought he was. But this past year, what gets lost in all this is not that Russell Wilson was great, not that Russell Wilson looked like a top 10 quarterback. And I know that you couldn't play any worse, but he was a lot better than where he was in year 1. And I thought what was a gross miscalculation on Russell Wilson and his part was the destination he went out to was not a good destination. When Jerry Jeudy is your best wide receiver and you had DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that's a big-time fall-off. I'd rather have DK Metcalf over Jerry Jeudy. I'd rather have Tyler Lockett over Jerry Jeudy. And I don't even think it's a debate. Jerry Jeudy thinks he's a stud. Jerry Jeudy, at best, with what we've seen so far in the NFL, is a 1.5. He's not a 1. He's not an NFL number 1 wide receiver. He's probably a number 2 wide receiver. He thinks he's a 1. He thinks he's a star. And I think he was the guy that got into it with Steve Smith on that sideline, too, this year, which was wild. But you got to start playing to the level that you're capable of. And the Broncos didn't have a lot around Russell Wilson. So you put Russ with Devontae Adams. Maybe you get Josh Jacobs back, but even if you don't, you could find a running back. I don't think that's the worst destination in the world for Russell Wilson. If I'm Russ, I'm hoping to go to Minnesota because you have Justin Jefferson. I know he's coming off an injury, but you have TJ Hawkinson. You got Jordan Addison as well. I do believe that Minnesota is the best destination, but that would require them moving off of Kirk Cousins. And I think that the Vikings went into this year saying, we expect this to be the last year of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. But then when Kirk Cousins gets hurt and you go through the Josh Dobbs experience, the Jaron Hall experience, the Nick Mullins experience as well, that you go, wow, maybe we didn't appreciate Kirk Cousins enough, who Kirk Cousins is good, but he ain't great. You could do better than Kirk Cousins, but to someone like a Kevin O'Connell and a Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, newer to the Minnesota Vikings organization, do they maybe want to go out and get their own guy? And I would say that at the end of the year, I thought Kirk Cousins would be back. But just with the way that it feels around the league, I think most people are bracing that Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent who is a free agent, is going to be going somewhere else. And even Kirk himself threw out the possibility of teaming up with Bill Belichick. So that leads us to the next Jeremy Fowler prediction. Kirk Cousins, and this is from NFL executives, Kirk Cousins and Bill Belichick will be Falcons and will win the NFC South. I wonder if the Bardometer and the NFL executives both just listened to this show to formulate their opinions. Because I said that a week and a half ago, that Belichick lands in Atlanta, Kirk Cousins lands in Atlanta, and the two of them combined will win the NFC South. Now, for Kirk Cousins, I do think you'd rather prefer to stay in Minnesota, but if Minnesota doesn't want you, it gets into the same conversation about Russell Wilson, and Kirk is more attractive than Russell Wilson, even coming off the Achilles injury, and Kirk Cousins is a better player than Russell Wilson as we enter the year of 2024. Yeah, a lot of the same destinations for Kirk Cousins, for Russell Wilson, will be there for Kirk Cousins. And you know what will end up popping back up? Let's say the 49ers lose this weekend to the Lions. Let's just say that. And let's say Brock Purdy is the reason why they lose. Even though a lot of people think in San Francisco Brock Purdy is the guy, Kyle Shanahan, who coached Kirk Cousins, has tried a lot of times to get Kirk Cousins to San Francisco. And even last year, when Brock Purdy had a really good end to the season before getting hurt, you had Kyle Shanahan, according to Brock Purdy, pursuing Tom Brady. So even though Brock Purdy's looking really well right now, the loyalty of Kyle Shanahan can switch in a snap of a finger. And I would not rule out Kirk Cousins being the 49ers quarterback next year. Because for Kirk, you'd have to take less. Because Kirk's in a position to ask for what he wants. Like Russell Wilson isn't. But for Kirk Cousins, you're in a position to ask for what you want. Now, you could look at it and say, the only thing I'm missing, I made all the money that I had and that anyone could ever imagine. The only thing I'm missing is a Super Bowl. Well, the team that would give you the best chance out of maybe realistic options, and some may say San Francisco is an unrealistic option, is San Francisco. So are you willing to take an enormous pay cut to go to San Francisco where you have a Christian McCaffrey, you have Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, you have Kittle, and you try to go get the one thing that's missing really in your NFL career, and that's a Super Bowl championship. Now, there's a lot of ifs to that. First, you need Brock Purdy to be the reason why the 49ers lose. And even with that being said, that may not even be enough to get Brock Purdy out of San Francisco. But Kyle Shanahan, he has been playing quarterback roulette the last few years. And it doesn't seem like he has any formula. He just rides who he thinks is the hot hand. So those are some predictions made by NFL executives talking to Jeremy Fowler. Russell Wilson will end up with the Raiders, and then Kirk Cousins will wind up with Bill Belichick in Atlanta. Now, there were a few more predictions made here. Baker Mayfield will re-sign with the Bucs. I could absolutely see that one happening, and it should happen for both parties. C.J. Stroud will finish top 3 in MVP voting. I don't think that is far-fetched. Could there be some regression in Houston? Yes. But, if I'm the Texans, I'm having a monster offseason this year. You don't have a lot on offense around C.J. Stroud. Yeah, Tank Dell got hurt. Nico Collins is solid. But you could still argue that you need a number one wide receiver. Nico Collins played the number one wide receiver role for them this year. But if you look at a bona fide and already proven number one wide receiver, could you then imagine what C.J. Stroud's going to do next year? And I said this the other week, and I'll say it again. I think C.J. Stroud enters next year as a top 5 quarterback in the league. I do. Mahomes, in no order, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, and then the 5th spot would be C.J. Stroud. And I would like people to argue who should move in front of C.J. Stroud. What, Rodgers coming off an Achilles? I can't go Herbert right now. Maybe you have a case for Jalen Hurts, but I can't go Jalen Hurts right now either. A league executive also predicted the Cardinals will make a playoff run. That's a sneaky team. Because that team, they played hard for Jonathan Gannon this year with not a lot of talent. And now you're going to get a full year out of Kyler Murray. And in the NFC, you need 9 wins to probably get the next wild card spot? And then the other prediction was the 49ers will take a slight step back. No NFL team has had more star power than the 49ers, who have built a perennial winner under head coach Kyle Shanahan and general manager John Lynch. But multiple league executives have pointed out the organization has experienced some brain power attrition. Personal execs have left for general manager jobs in back-to-back years. Kwefi Adolfo-Mensah, Ran Carthon, and Adam Peters. And executive Ethan, I can't pronounce the last name, also left in 2022 to become the Jaguars' assistant general manager. That's a lot for Lynch to overcome, an NFC executive said. they could get exposed in free agency in the draft. The only thing I think derails the 49ers for the next year or two would be injuries. They'll take a slight step back is saying something. Well, maybe they won't be the team to beat in the NFC. That's the way that you justify it. So those are some predictions being made from league executives right now around the NFL. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'll answer this question before we get off the air, but I did a radio hit today as I do a weekly spot on 560 WQAM with Channing Crowder and Mark Hochman. They do a really good radio show. And they said to me, if you were doing a draft tomorrow, we give you these 5 quarterbacks. Who would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? The 5 quarterbacks were Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. How would you order those guys 1 through 5? I'll give you my answer coming up in about 30 minutes from now at 5:40 p.m. Eastern, 2:40 p.m. Pacific. But first, we will take a timeout because when we come on back, Drew Tranquill had a really good game up against the Buffalo Bills. He started his career with the Los Angeles Chargers, getting drafted out of Notre Dame. And this offseason, he found his way to Kansas City when he was a free agent. Now he's playing for the Chiefs, is 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl. He's jumped on with us a bunch throughout the years. Always love talking with Drew Tranquill, and he's going to join us when we return in 5 minutes to get you set for the Chiefs AFC Championship game for the 6th straight season. This time, though, the Chiefs will be on the road. They'll be going to Baltimore, going up against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Drew Tranquill next on the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The Kansas City Chiefs, death, taxes, and the Chiefs being in the AFC title game for their 6th straight year. They are in the AFC title game, going up against the Baltimore Ravens this time and headed on the road to go to Baltimore this Sunday. Drew Tranquill has been a part of the Chargers organization from 2019 to 2022, and this past offseason elected to sign on board with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he should be playing a major factor in this AFC title game, and he's kind enough to jump on board with us right now. Drew, first off, congratulations. Always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
Zach, I've been great. It's good to see you again, and hope everything's well on your end, man. Super excited. Obviously, my first time in the AFC title game, but there's a lot of energy, a lot of good vibes around the building, and we're excited to go play a really good football team in Baltimore.
Yeah, how is this for you internally when you hear that the Chiefs are going to be in the AFC title game? Because nothing against the Chargers, but they just always have that feel of having a talented roster and just not getting the job done in the playoffs. To now go to a team where the standard is every year to win a Super Bowl, to be playing in this AFC title game on Sunday and knowing that that is now a reality, just what are the emotions that it elicits for you?
Well, I know my wife and my little boy and my girls and myself, we're super excited. It'll be our first time, like I mentioned. But, yeah, just a seasoned group, a group that's been really couple Super Bowls, put them through. And so there's just so much to learn from the coaches and the players in this building. And I'm certainly grateful to be a part of this team and organization. And there'll be a lot of good energy there on Sunday afternoon.
I got to take you back to the last round. Man, that was some scene in Buffalo last Sunday. What a classic game once again between the Bills and the Chiefs. But it looked like you were having some fun there at the end with the Bills Mafia fans that were throwing snowballs at you, which was just crazy.
Yeah, they were hurling them. I felt like a kid, man. It's one of those things where it's like, man, football is awesome. It's so awesome. It unifies people in a way that not many things in life can do. And it was really cool to silence that crowd and get a win. Obviously, their players were chirping a lot early in the week about home field advantage, this, that, and the other. And I felt finally having to go there and to win that game, a close heavyweight bout the way that we did. I think really just brought us closer and helped us build more confidence as we keep this thing going here.
Talking to Drew Tranquill right now from the Kansas City Chiefs. They're getting set to go up against the Ravens in the AFC title game on Sunday. The fake punt. I saw some Inside the NFL clip that Nick Bolton was saying to you guys, be aware of the fake punt. There's a possibility it was coming. I know you were on the field for it. Did you guys sense that fake punt was going to happen, that the Bills elected to run on 4th and 5 with Damar Hamlin?
Well, I mean, you certainly sense that the offenses on both sides were rolling, and the defenses, every stop you could get was critical and crucial. And so we were able to kind of bow up there, create a 4th and 5, and certainly that's a situation when your antennas are up. Our guys, we only had 10 guys on the field, I think, but the guys that were in there, we did a great job of recognizing it. Their communication was a little bit different than it was in their typical punt pro. And I think some guys picked up on that. We picked up on the snapper's hands, kind of a little softer on the ball, and his touch on his snap was a little bit different. And so those subtle things right before the ball is snapped can kind of trigger you, but guys just executed well, and we were able to get the stop there.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that they elected to run it. I get what you're saying, and obviously you guys wish you had 11 guys on the field, but it didn't matter either way. But I look at that, if you're going to go for it, you may as well just put the ball in the hands of Josh Allen and just line you up. I would rather have Josh Allen with the ball in his hands with 11 guys on the defense than running a fake punt, especially the way they ran it. I just thought it was such a low percentage play, even though you guys only had 10 guys on the field. I was shocked by it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been caught by a couple of fakes this year. Our punt team, or our punt return team, has. We hit the Chargers a couple weeks ago on really a similar concept. We ran it to the right, I think. But you'd be surprised, man, that direct snap, especially when a team books you for being in a 6 or 7 box. I mean, they had to look. We had 10 guys on the field. I think we had 5 guys in the box. They certainly had the numbers, and our guys just out-physicaled and out-executed them. And we were able to kind of cut the edge off and make them cut it back. But, the timing, you can catch teams off guard, and that can be a special weapon. I know our team has certainly used it this season, and we've used it in the past, and Coach Tobe really likes that play. But, you've got a great quarterback in Josh Allen. I think when you put it out there in 4th and 5 and go for it, I don't know what the percentages are there, but I think we had 3 good snaps on defense back-to-back. So, it's something if they hit it and they get it, they're super smart. And if they don't get it, it's something that's obviously going to be in question.
I remember talking to your defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, back in week 3. And I said, man, you guys really have something this year on defense. And I don't think you guys are getting enough national recognition. And Spags is like, that's right where we want them. Everyone focus on the offense. Just leave us alone. We'll keep on doing what we do. How about the confidence of this group? Because in the second half, I know in the first half didn't exactly go your way, but really that second half, to hold that Buffalo team to only 1 touchdown in the second half, the final 30 minutes of play, is really a remarkable achievement.
Well, I think we have great chemistry and confidence as a unit. I think we've got a lot of guys with some experience, a lot of veteran leadership, and a really player-driven group that kind of just flies around. And so, something that we've been great at all season is making halftime adjustments. I think you look even in the Bengals game a few weeks ago, I think we gave up 17 points in the first half. The Chargers game comes to mind. The first time we played them in Arrowhead, I think week 6 or 7, gave up 17 points. And then we've played really good second half defense. I think that's a testament to Spags and our coaching staff, all the position coaches, to, huddling up and making the right adjustments at halftime. And then us as players not turning on each other and just kind of being unified and playing stout team unit defense in the second half, which we certainly did this past Sunday and needed to win that game. And so that's going to be really important, obviously, in Baltimore. You never know how these games go. I mean, we could get up 2 scores on them. We talk about it every Saturday night before the game. You got to be ready for the extremes. You can get up 2 scores and you got to keep the foot on the pedal, or you could go down 2 scores and you can't start chirping at one another and turning on each other. You got to come together and start playing consistent unit defense. So that'll be important, whatever the outcome or however the game starts on Sunday for us.
Drew Tranquill here with us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I was watching Good Morning Football earlier this AM, and they were doing a segment like underrated players that could play a major impact in the game on Sunday. And Peter Schrager brought you up, and I think he's dead on because of his athleticism. I think you're going to have a big role one way or another going up against Lamar and the Ravens. So how do you kind of make about those comments and what could be asked of you this week up against Lamar and the Ravens?
Well,
Drew, you still there? I think we had trouble getting you there. You got what I said? What I said?
Yeah, can you hear me, Zach?
Yeah, we got you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an honor. Peter's obviously great at what he does, and I appreciate that praise from him. But, man, I look across our entire defense. We've got speed across the board. You talk about myself. You talk about Willie Gay. You talk about Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton. You talk about Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, Justin Reed. Everybody in our secondary can fly around on our second levels. We got defensive ends that play well. So Lamar is obviously special. He can make people miss in the open field. But we're going to have some opportunities to make some big plays Sunday, and we're going to have to do that when the opportunity comes.
You don't have to prepare to go up against Patrick Mahomes because he's your teammate. You used to have to do that when you were with the Chargers. When you look at the rest of the league, just because of that ability to run like no other and then also throw the football too that Lamar has, is he the toughest quarterback for you in football to just prepare for?
Well, I haven't played him yet, Zach, but certainly when you look at the tape and what he's able to do, throwing the ball, running the ball, everybody knows he's as dynamic a runner as there is in the NFL, whether you want to talk about running backs or quarterbacks. He's as dynamic as they come. He can make guys miss. He's got the speed, the top-end speed to go the distance. But I think something that jumps out to me and our players and our coaches early on is how much he's developed in the pocket, his patience as a passer, his ability and willingness to take checkdowns when they come and not just, run around. And so he's a great player. He's going to be tough to stop.
I know that you talked about this year and what it's like going from the Chargers to the Chiefs, but after being right in the same division and going up against them for the last few years, now to be in the same locker room as a Mahomes and a Kelsey and learn from Andy Reid as a head coach. Just how was that initially when you first walked into that locker room, going from enemy to, I know it's part of the business, to then just being one of them in Kansas City?
Yeah, it took time. It was weird walking in the first day. It's like, man, what am I doing here? I've been going against these guys, 2 times a year for the past 4 years. But slowly it's just become a brotherhood. I mean, those guys are really good friends of mine. The competitive greatness in this building, the competitive stamina to go through OTAs, through training camp, through a long preseason, season, and postseason, year in and year out. I mean, these guys really do strive to be the best, and the best in the National Football League, the best in the world. And I've certainly learned a lot from the likes of, Andy and Patrick and Travis and Chris. And, you go down the list of all the number of great players and coaches we have. And even our ownership, and you talk about Brett Veach in the front office, everybody's just kind of built different here, and there's a championship culture, and that takes time to build. And, they've obviously built it here, and it's special when you get to be around it.
So we always know the Chiefs are in the spotlight. When you're the team everyone's hunting, you're going to get attention like no other. And then all of a sudden, Travis Kelce starts dating Taylor Swift, and then that attention just gets put on steroids pretty much. Drew Tranquill, what has that been like, being in that locker room with all the extra attention now with the whole Taylor Swift Travis Kelce relationship?
It's interesting. You don't really feel it and hear too much of it inside the locker room. But it'll be moments like at practice when Kanal, our DJ, turns on a Taylor Swift song and everybody kind of jokes about it. I think the wives and the girlfriends, I hear about it more when I go home than I do actually in the building. But it's been fun, man. It's that's something to celebrate, something fun, and we enjoy poking fun at Travis. But it seems like maybe they're in love, man. They got really something going, and we enjoy having her at our games. It brings a lot of energy and a lot of fun to our fans, and so that's good for business, good for football, and good for the NFL.
You expected an invite to that wedding eventually, right?
We'll see, man. We'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to go to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we let Drew Tranquill run, you talked a little bit about Mahomes. Some people believe that he'll end up being the greatest quarterback of all time whenever it's all said and done. Just how about the greatness that you see day in and day out after going up against it for so many years and then now being a part of it, seeing it day in and day out in that locker room?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being in his shoes and people talking about the greatest of all time and all the pressure that could be put on somebody like that. But he handles it with such grace. And to be in the pressure cooker in those moments, you go into Buffalo on your first, road playoff game, and everybody's, oh, can he do this? Can he do that? And to have the performance that he did. And, the moment never seems too big for him. He's super level-headed. He's consistent in everything he does, from what he wears out to practice to his routines. And I think whenever you have consistency in your routine like that, and you have somebody who's as hungry and competitive as he is, you can have the competitive stamina and the competitive greatness to achieve the things that he's done. And obviously it takes a special player, and he is that. But he's got all the intangible, I think, that you're looking for in terms of somebody being great. So I'm glad he's on my team. Put it that way.
Yeah, I know that you're real focused on the AFC Championship game, and you know what happens if you guys win this. You go to the Super Bowl. Like, naturally, do you find yourself throughout the week just like thinking, man, we win this game, we're in the Super Bowl, or is just all the focus is only on the Ravens? Like, when you get a moment just to yourself, does that thought creep into your head, wow, we're really 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl?
I mean, I think it definitely fuels you. I mean, that's what you're striving for every week is the end goal is to hoist that Lombardi trophy, and every game is a step in that direction. I think the closer you get to it, the more hungry you get. But you learn as a competitor and as a player in this league, the second you look past even a moment or a drive, a series or a half or a game, like, players are too good. Teams, coaches are too good in this league, and you'll get beat. It's a league where you have to focus on the present moment, and if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. So that excitement is certainly there internally, but mentally, you have to remind yourself, like, in terms of your preparation, like, we got to beat the Ravens. We got to do every little thing, every small detail that we can to maximize, our opportunity to win.
Well, good luck. I really do appreciate you carving out some time for us. I know it's a busy week. Thanks so much for doing this, and have a great game on Sunday.
Hey, thanks, Zach. We'll see you guys.
You got it. There he is, Drew Tranquill from the Kansas City Chiefs. Always love when he jumps on board with us on CBS Sports Radio. All righty, we will take a timeout. When we come on back, I was asked this question today on the Crowder and Hochman show, Hochman and Crowder on 560 WQAM. Herbert, Love, Hurts, Tua, Burrow. You're drafting tomorrow, 1 through 5. How do you order those guys? That's what we will end the show out with. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Oh, the Bucs won 30 of their first 43, but weren't satisfied, firing head coach Adrian Griffin. It's now on Doc Rivers to get them back to the NBA Finals, with the 62-year-old ending his brief flirtation with broadcasting and agreeing to coach the Bucs. Milwaukee currently second in the East and will host the Cavaliers, who have won 8 in a row. The Timberwolves are in Washington, coming off a loss in which Karl Anthony Towns had 62 points. It leaves them tied with the Thunder for the top spot in the West. Oklahoma City will take on the Spurs in San Antonio, looking for their 4th straight win. The Raiders, at this hour, are introducing their new general manager, Tom Telesco, and head coach Antonio Pierce. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan said Deebo Samuel's shoulder is better, but he did not practice today. The Chiefs' Joe Thuney did not practice because of his pec injury. His status for Sunday is still to be determined. Isaiah Pacheco said he's playing despite an injured toe. The Dolphins and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio have parted ways after one season, and the Bengals are reportedly promoting quarterbacks coach Dan Pitcher to replace Brian Callahan as offensive coordinator. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day. And it's brought to you by our good friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Matt in Framingham says, Zach, If Bill Belichick does not coach next season, should he get a TV try? Hashtag Ask the Pros on Twitter. You can always submit the question at Zach Gelb, ZachGelb. You can submit it there. You can also submit it at CBS Sports Radio. Make sure you use the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think Bill Belichick can do TV. I don't know if I would love him, though, on TV. Like, he won an Emmy, and I think it was him who won the Emmy. Hopefully no one submitted a different name and just gave the trophy to Bill Belichick. But the show did win the Emmy for, it was him, Rich Eisen, the NFL Top 100 to honor, 100 years of football and all that stuff that they did do. And he was great with the history. In terms of like the big storylines that I think a lot of us like to tune into shows for, I don't know how Bill would handle that. And I think Bill would be funny, but I think it would be like a lot of dry humor. And I don't know if that would work week in and week out on a show. Like, I guess if you put him on the NFL Today, or you put him on the Fox pregame show or an ESPN pregame show, he could be fine. He could be good. I think it would be fascinating to hear him as a color analyst. That actually probably would be the best in the booth. Now, just when you have him breaking down just the football stuff, play in and play out. But I think this guy should be back coaching. I don't need to see Bill Belichick on TV. Yeah, I know Saban. It appears that Saban is, like, a lot of people think he's going to do game day next year, and he's going to be the heir apparent on the coaching side to replace Lee Corso. I think Saban on game day could be good. Belichick, I think, would be fine on TV. It would be interesting, but I don't know if it would make necessarily for week in and week out good television. The guy should coach, though, and just get this deal with Atlanta already done with. It's crazy that it may not get done now after everyone thought it was going to get done. It's just, it's a little ridiculous. It's like, why isn't the deal getting done? Like Arthur Blank, it comes down to, do you want to hire Bill Belichick? If you do, hire him. If you don't, why don't you want to hire him? Because it seems like you were so all in on hiring him a week ago. And if it's just because some people in your building are afraid that they'll eventually lose their jobs, well, then you shouldn't have been interested in Bill Belichick in the first place. Anyway, I do a lot of radio interviews around the country. And I thought this question I got in a weekly spot that I do with Mark Hochman and Shannon Crowder was a great question today. You're picking in the NFL draft tomorrow. You could have Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. How would you order those quarterbacks? And I did this in the moment, and I stand by it. And I think the take that I gave in the moment, 2 and 3 was tough. But the take that I gave in the moment, I'll explain it now fully and why I did this. Number 1, it would be Joe Burrow. I think out of the 5 quarterbacks they mentioned, Love, Tua, Hurts, Herbert, Burrow is by far and away the best quarterback out of the 5. And not only is he the best quarterback, he got Cincinnati to an AFC title game and also a Super Bowl. Right? 2 AFC title games and a Super Bowl. The only potential scare with Joe Burrow are injuries, because he's had 2 season-ending injuries. But the upend and the high point of Burrow is that great, where he's the only guy that legitimately has been able to tug in that cape of Superman in Patrick Mahomes and take it for like a year. It's been that sensational that I run the risk with the injuries. Like, it is a big risk because of the injuries, but the reward is so high. So Burrow's 1. Then at number 2, like when I do my top 10 quarterback rankings this summer, as that will be a summer topic here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, I would not put this guy on this list in front of, in those rankings, Jalen Hurts. But in terms of 1 through 5 I'm drafting, and I'm thinking about the quarterbacks for the next 10 years, I would put Justin Herbert in front of Jalen Hurts on this list. Like right now, I don't think Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts had one great year. And then this past year, I think it was more of a bad environment why Hurts did struggle. But with how many hits Hurts takes, because they have him run so much, I do get concerned about the longevity of Jalen Hurts. And I do believe that Herbert, his career has been good, but it hasn't been great because I think it's been more so he's been failed by the coaches around him. And I hope they make the right hire in replacing Brandon Staley. So I would go Herbert 2, and then I would put Jalen Hurts in at 3. And Jalen Hurts, I don't believe he's as bad as what he played this year. And once again, I do think it was more of an environment of just a bad culture and a poor locker room. But that's also on the quarterback, too, to uplift that. And the same could be said for Justin Herbert, that it could be said for Jalen Hurts. But they ask him to run the ball so much in Philadelphia. That's why right now I've been so adamant that the Eagles need to change head coaches, because you have a window of a few years to go win a title. Because you're asking so much out of your quarterback right now. You don't get it done in this next year to like 4 years or so. I don't know what Jalen Hurts' body's going to look like 4 or 5 years from now with all the hits that he does take. And we all know the guy's in magnificent shape. Like, I've been in that Eagles locker room. Jalen Hurts is like legs. They're just tree trunks. They're enormous. Absolutely enormous. In at number 4, I know this is going to annoy people by who I put 5. It's Jordan Love 4. And I put Tua 5. And here's the difference between Jordan Love and Tua. I think I know what Tua's ceiling is. I think Tua, his ceiling in this league is just being a good quarterback. I don't think Tua is a great quarterback. And in what's in Tua's best season in the NFL, which was this past year, what was the real memorable moment for Tua Tagovailoa? The win against the Cowboys, right? Like, in any big game this year, he did not really excel. Against the Chiefs, the 2 bad throws at the end. Or the fumble snap and then the bad throw. The underthrow and then it was the fumble snap. You look back at these other performances, like any big game this year, the Dolphins' offense was, for an offense that was such a high-flying, high-octane offense, it was very vanilla. For Jordan Love, this was in year number 1 as a starting quarterback. And Jordan Love got better as the season did go on. And Jordan Love won the first round up against the Cowboys, destroyed them. And then in round number 2, he threw a big-time costly interception when they could have got into field goal range, and we would have seen if Carlson would have got the field goal. But with how little experience that he had, you're going to expect some of those, I know he's not a rookie, but what feels like rookie mistakes to happen with Jordan Love. So I believe Jordan Love has a higher ceiling than Tua Tagovailoa. And even though Tua, and I picked the Dolphins on the AFC East before the start of the year, and I know Tua didn't do that, even though they were leading for most of the year, but Tua has now dealt with a bunch of injuries where the next concussion that he gets, there's going to be a big conversation about Tua. Thankfully, whether it was the jiu-jitsu and a fall injury, that conversation's going to reappear. So that was a good question. But if I'm looking for the next 10 years, which quarterback would I want to draft out of the 5 that they gave me? Burrow would be 1. Herbert would be 2. Hurts would be 3. I thought that was the toughest decision to decipher Hurts and Herbert. Then Jordan Love would be 4. And Tua Tagovailoa would be 5. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. This week is really flying by. Only 2 more shows left this week. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Would like to thank Jon Rothstein, CBS Sports college basketball reporter, insider, joining us on behalf of FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Jon Rothstein says what Dan Hurley's doing at UConn right now is Calhoun-esque, as UConn won a national championship last year, and now they are the #1 team in the country. They've never been to back-to-back Final Fours. They're trying to do that this upcoming season. Also like to thank Bart Winkler for joining us in the first ever installment of Winkler Wednesdays. He'll be joining us most Wednesdays right here on CBS Sports Radio at 4:40 p.m. Eastern, 1:40 p.m. Pacific. I always like listening to Bart, having Bart on the show. You can listen to Bart weeknights, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on CBS Sports Radio. And then a few moments ago, Drew Tranquill joining us from the Kansas City Chiefs inside the Chiefs facility. Appreciate him for jumping on board. All righty, we're going to have a show dinner. Stu, Samter, get ready. We're about to eat a lot of porterhouse steak, some bacon, some spinach, some lobster mac. Who knows? Maybe even we'll throw in a wedge salad as well so we can pretend to be healthy, even though that's not really healthy. We'll talk manana, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.